Let's go ahead and peel the fender. We're going to go ahead and spray the top of the piece pretty heavily. And what we're doing is we're ensuring that it doesn't stick to each other. So we're going to start with the bottom tail. You're going to slowly peel all the way up to the autopilot and you're going to put it down. And then you're going to go to the other corner where it meets the A pillar and you're going to go ahead and peel all the way up to the autopilot as well. There will be a prominent hole and you'll understand what I'm talking about once you start peeling. One thing to note is that it is completely weeded, so it'll be a lot easier to see when you start weeding. Once you have the top and the bottom weeded, we're going to go ahead and do the other side where it meets the bumper, and we're going to go ahead and make sure that we're spraying underneath. And this is so important because if you don't do this process, it's going to stick to each other and you're going to have a little bit of a hard time trying to unstick it. You notice that once I got to where there's a split, I'm going to go ahead and stop and making sure that I have both of those areas completely removed from the backing paper. And as I'm going into the autopilot area, I'm slowly and spraying a lot of slip solution underneath. And again, this is very important so it doesn't stick together. Once you have everything doused in slip solution, you're going to go ahead and spray the top one more time and we're ready to go. And we're going to go ahead and prep the car. Go ahead and spray a lot of slip solution on the top, and this is your last defense before we start installing. So what we're doing here is we're making sure that there is no more contamination on the vehicle itself. Notice I did spray this squeegee as well. And that's to make sure that I don't have any more dirt or contamination or hair, whatever could actually damage a car. You're going to go ahead and get rid of all the slip solution off and making sure that all dirt is off. I'm also doing the headlights mainly because there might be dust that is settling right there. Go ahead and get the rest of the fender and you're good to go. Once we have it completely clean, we're going to grab our slip solution again and spray it down. It's really important to be generous with your slip solution to make sure that it slips and slides a lot easier. If you don't have enough slip solution, you're going to have a difficult time. What I found the easiest way to lay this on the actual car is hold the top right corner and the tail that meets the front bumper. You're going to go ahead and place it away from your t-shirt because that can cause contamination, and gently place it. Since there is a lot of slip solution underneath, it shouldn't stick to each other. One thing I'll warn is the bottom tail can land on the tire, and the tire is a very dirty area, so just make sure that it doesn't touch your tires. If it does, just spray a lot with slip solution underneath to make sure that you get any contamination off the piece before starting. You notice you're going to have a lot of big bubbles, and using your hands, you're going to try to get rid of as many big bubbles as you can. You don't want to trap there, and you're just ensuring everything is loosely aligned. You're not trying to make sure that everything is completely aligned because we will have to do a little bit of stretching, so don't worry too much. Once you have most of the big bubbles out and you have it loosely aligned, you're ready to start aligning the first point. And the first point of alignment is going to be the top part where it meets the A pillar. You're going to make sure that you align it right to the door, the A pillar, and the top part where it meets the hood as well. Once you feel like it's good, you're going to spray some tack solution and go ahead and gently get the tack solution out. When you do this part, make sure that you start a little lighter so that you don't drag the film across and go over the edge. To help with the longevity of the film, you want to make sure that you're a little bit inside the edge, and that will help make the film last a lot longer. Go ahead and squeegee this whole section out so that it is completely tacked, and make sure you go downwards when you are at that body line at the bottom portion. Once you feel like that part is completely aligned, we're going to go ahead and align the bottom part. The tail is very, very thin, so just make sure that you have the alignment right. And once you feel comfortable aligned from bottom and both side edges, go ahead and spray some tack solution. You're going to hold that tail, and as you feel aligned, you're going to gently squeegee downwards. Again, this is a very, very thin area, so it's very, very easy to actually move the film. in the wrong way. So I like to be very gentle. And once I feel like it is completely tacked, that's when I would actually squeegee the rest of the area out. Now that we have the top and the bottom part squeegeed, we are going to make sure that we start from the top of the body line and create a line right where the autopilot starts. So we're going to go towards the autopilot and again squeegee to the body line, and that is a very important process because water tends to sit right at the body line. If you have some fingers or wrinkles, don't worry about it. Go ahead and squeegee into the autopilot since there is a hole cut out. And while you're doing this, make sure that you have alignment on the right edge. Sometimes it helps to hold one area while you're squeegeeing outwards. Keep in mind when you are squeegeeing, you want to make sure you squeegee towards the edge so you get the water out and it exits out. And what you're trying to do is you're not dragging the PPF piece, you really are pushing the slip solution underneath out into an exit point. So exit points can be edges, but keep in mind an exit point is also the hole where the autopilot sits as well. As you're squeegeeing, you may recognize that there are some wrinkles on the sides or the autopilot area. That's no problem. Go ahead and spray some tack solution and let it sit for a little bit, and that tack will anchor that area and make sure that the wrinkles all go away. Now that we have the whole right part completely anchored, we're going to go ahead and deal with this autopilot fingers. Go ahead and start with the right corner, and we're going to go ahead and spray some tack solution. And as you're spraying, I'm going to be squeegeeing downwards. And the reason why I'm doing that is when you're putting tack solution, it's going to want to actually drop down and travel downwards. You want to make sure you catch that, and the tack solution will ensure that it completely anchors that area. So make sure that you're watching that water doesn't just sit right there, and make sure you catch it with your squeegee and go ahead and squeegee until it completely tacks. I like to hold the squeegee with two hands like that and gently hold that area, and that tends to help a lot, making sure it fully anchors and you can move on to all the rest of the fingers. Some fingers will be persistent, but go ahead and use a lot of tack solution. You want to make sure that it is fully anchored before moving on. Let's go ahead and tackle that top corner. I'm just going to hold that there until the fingers go away. Go ahead and spray some more tack solution into that corner. And notice I catch that water, and we're going to feed that into that valley. There is a slight cut right there. So we're going to go ahead and hold it with one finger and use that tip of the squeegee to anchor both of those down. I like using my thumb to push that in and make sure you're using a good amount of pressure to make sure that sticks. I'm going to be continuing to use my tack solution and holding it until it fully anchors around the autopilot camera. We're going to go ahead and continue to work this area. And again, if you have persistent fingers and wrinkles, just go ahead and put a little bit more tack solution and be patient, and don't forget to use a lot of tack solution. For the top edge, it does roll over a little bit of the edge for better coverage. So go ahead and roll over that edge all the way inside for full coverage. What you're looking for in these cases is making sure that there are no air bubbles or water bubbles. If you see it, make sure you squeegee it out. Once you're happy with it, go ahead and we're going to spray some more slip solution, and we're going to give it one more squeegee, and again go away from where it was already tacked. And this is to ensure that you are not leaving any bubbles. If you have some persistent fingers, remember to just use some more tack solution and slowly squeegee it out to make sure it is fully anchored. We're going to make sure that the top and the inner edges of the fender piece is still hydrated, and we're going to spray our slip solution on the top portion, and we're going to peel it back all the way to the autopilot area and give it a good spray with slip solution. This ensures that it's still moving properly and that you have enough slip for it to slide around. There will be a little bit of a stretch, so this process is very important. Using two hands, you're going to go ahead and align right where it meets the headlights. When you're checking this alignment, make sure that the little piece connecting to the bumper on both sides is completely aligned before you make sure that you anchor that. Once you feel like you have a comfortable stretch, we're going to go ahead and get some tack solution and spray it right underneath that area and make sure that we have it aligned exactly how we wanted it. And we're going to spread it apart just a little bit and use your squeegee to squeegee it out and anchor it into place. This ensures that there is stretch going from the autopilot area all the way up to the headlight. And then from the point of the headlight, you are going to squeegee from the body line and down the center to make sure that we split it from top to bottom. This is a very important process, like I mentioned, because water tends to sit right in that area. Once you have that area anchored, we're going to go ahead and anchor the area where it meets the hood and the front bumper, and we're going to make sure that it is aligned and inside the edges. Once you feel comfortable, go ahead and give it a little bit of a tack solution and squeegee that out to anchor it into place. If you are not happy with your alignment, that's no problem. Go ahead and peel it back, spray some slip solution first, and then spray some tack solution if you're ready to start anchoring. Before we push out all the water into the top part of the fender, we're going to hold until the alignment is perfect around the headlight area. And once it is, you're going to go ahead and get all the water out towards the headlight because that is an exit. And again, go away from the tack point, so make sure you don't go down to the top part of the headlight again. We're going to get all the slip solution in that area out. Don't forget to spray some more slip solution on the top, and we're going to squeegee towards the body line again at the top part of the fender and get all the water out. This time, the exit is where it meets the hood, since it is a closer exit. Once I have the tail done, I'm going to go ahead and use two hands or one hand and go ahead and move all the water upwards across that top body line. Notice I'm going a little bit past the body line, and then I squeegee against the body line again to ensure that there are no bubbles or air bubbles that sit there. I'm giving it a good amount of force, and there will be some wrinkles, but don't worry about it. Once we squeegee it all out, it should leave. Once you give it a good squeegee one more time at the top part of the body line, you're going to start from the bottom part of that body line and work your way outside towards the hood. This ensures that there are no water that just sits there and creates issues later down the line. Go ahead and spray more slip solution, and we're going to give it one more good squeegee to make sure that you have no remaining bubbles out there. Just another reminder, don't go towards the tack solution again and go away from it and find the nearest exit. In this case, it's nearest to the hood. After inspection and you're happy about it, go ahead and spray some tack solution on the edge nearest to the hood. And what this does is ensures that no water will go back to that area. It anchors that, and it won't cause issues later down the line. Also, if you have fingers or wrinkles there, that's not a problem. The tack solution will help with that as well. Now, let's get to the last part of the section. If it's been some time, go ahead and change your spray into stream mode, and you just have to turn it, and this makes sure that it travels a lot further. And go ahead and spray some slip solution up to the autopilot area and right under the body line. It may have been some time since you last hydrated that area, so you want to make sure that you spray some slip solution underneath and on top of it. We're in the last tack point of this piece, so you're almost there and you're doing a great job. Since we already tacked that corner where it meets the headlight, this part should align pretty easily, but once you have the corner aligned, make sure you spray some tack solution and make sure it's still aligned and go ahead and squeegee that out. For this part, the most important alignment is going to be right next to the headlight where it meets the bumper and also the trim at the bottom area where it meets the wheels. Once you feel pretty comfortable, go ahead and use the pointy part of the squeegee and tack that down and anchor it. Once you have that corner down, we're going to go ahead and hold where it meets the fender wheel well and go ahead and squeegee that out. And since we already squeegeed up above the body line, we're going to squeegee downwards and make sure that we exit downwards. You don't want to introduce slip solution above that body line again. We're going to start from the top, since gravity works better if you go from top to bottom, and we're going to push all the bubbles downwards into the wheel area. What I like to do for this section is make sure that you get all the slip solution out and into that wheel area. And we're going to work on some of those wrinkles later on. I'm going to give it a good amount of force when I'm going right to that point. And again, another reminder to make sure that you are squeegeeing into that body line, and that ensures that no bubble rests in that area. While you're holding it, you're going to go ahead and squeegee as much as you can outwards into that trim. You might have some persistent fingers, but that's where tack solution comes into play. Go ahead and get as many bubbles as you can out before we introduce the tack solution. In PPF, we say something called divide and conquer. And what that means is if you have wrinkles like this, what you want to do is instead of having a giant wrinkle, you want to divide them a little bit and have smaller wrinkles to work with. Before we introduce the tack solution, we're going to try to get as many wrinkles out first without using any tack. When you do this process, one thing to note is instead of trying to go direct into it, I try to go in more of an angle and go slowly and watch that you're not creasing the film when you're doing this process. Now that we have the last remaining finger standing, we're going to now get the tack solution into place. Go ahead and give it a good generous amount into that wrinkle and just let it sit, and we're going to slowly, from the top of the body line, slowly move that out, and it'll make sure that that tack solution anchors into place. If you have some persistent, go ahead and do what we've been doing. Just spray more tack solution and push it out. You're going to need a little bit of patience here, and go ahead and work one finger at a time. It will be tempting to spray all of them and try to get all of them at the same time, but go ahead and try to work on one at a time. And remember, when you are squeegeeing it out, just make sure that you're watching that you're not creasing the film. One technique I like to do when I'm getting rid of fingers is once I'm squeegeeing, I just hold it for about 2 to 5 seconds, and that also helps make sure that it completely anchors down. I'm down to my last big finger, and go ahead and do the same thing I've been doing. Spray some tack solution into that wrinkle and go ahead and push it down all the way slowly and hold it down. Some fingers may be very, very persistent, and what I like to do is I'm going to be leaving it. I'm going to let it dry for 1 to 2 hours, and once it's dry, you can get a microfiber towel and push that in, and it should stick. Let's go ahead and inspect the fender to make sure that there are no more bubbles, no more fingers, or anything out there that you should be looking into. It hasn't been that long, so if you have to correct something, this would be the perfect time to do so. So as you're inspecting, if you feel like you see something, go ahead and squeegee that out and ensuring there are no big bubbles. If there are small bubbles, keep in mind, if it's a bubble the size of a nickel, that will eventually dissipate, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Some of the problem areas are going to be the autopilot, and what would help is if you grab a microfiber and get all the remaining water out of that area, because it will want to pull back up if there is moisture. You're going to go ahead and wrap the squeegee with a microfiber, and this sucks up the moisture, and then it makes sure that it completely sits down. The other technique here would be to just let it sit like I mentioned earlier, and once it's fully dried, you can get a microfiber cloth and push it down, and it will stay down since it is completely dry. This will be a good process. If you do need the car, you can use a microfiber wrapped in squeegee and pull it down so that it does grab the moisture and the fingers stay down. Let's go ahead and get the last remaining fingers right here. We're going to go ahead and push it all the way down and wrap it around that edge. You might want to hold 3 to 5 seconds for it to completely stay it down. If you are looking to get all the fingers out right now, another technique is to use your thumb wrapped around in microfiber, and as you're wicking away the moisture, you're going to go ahead and push it down completely around the edges to make sure that it is completely stuck to the body of the car. Since the fender piece hasn't been installed not too long ago, I do recommend letting it sit for like 1 to 2 hours and getting a microfiber cloth and pushing all those fingers down later down the line. The reason being is there is a little bit of risk of it coming back up.